here's Brody Brazil.
I've got to make this admission about the Tampa Bay Rays and my coverage here on the YouTube channel. I think I actually took my eye off the ball just a little bit. In covering this baseball team, it's mostly been about, will they be sold or not? How about Tropicana Field? Will they ever play there again or not? The Orlando group trying to make a strong push to poach this baseball team and move them. So all of those high-level things going on, I kind of wasn't paying enough attention to, the actual baseball on the field, results at Steinbrenner Field, and how this team entering this season had maybe a 30% chance of making the playoffs. Now we're almost at the All-Star break, and it's something like 70%. It's more likely than not that they will be in a playoff position at the end of 162 games, and so that poses another interesting question. Something that Ken Rosenthal brought up in The Athletic with a piece with a little bit of update that spurred a lot of conversation. So what actually happens if the Rays make the playoffs this season? Are there home playoff games in a minor league stadium in Tampa where they've spent this entire regular season? Here's kind of the gist of Rosenthal's piece, which I don't want to share all of, but I will put a link to it down below in The Athletic so you can read it for yourself. Major League Baseball and the Rays have engaged in preliminary conversations about where the team would play home games if it makes the playoffs, according to officials briefed on the discussions. And again, there is so much information in this piece. It's kind of hard to compile all of it, but I'll try and do that here with these next two screens. Here's Ken's key points. Steinbrenner Field, their thinking is possibly viable for early round playoff games, like maybe a wild card series or an ALDS, but maybe not a CS, and a World Series is a totally different beast. He also points out that among the challenges they'll face are just ticket shortages, but also sponsor ticket shortages. Sponsors are guaranteed playoff tickets in certain markets and partners of Major League Baseball. This is something that they kind of bake into contracts, they bake into agreements because they usually know, hey, we'll have an extra 7,000 tickets for playoff games to give to our partners and sponsors. Well, they don't really have that situation in Tampa. There's only a little more than 10,000 seats. There's also going to be diminished gate receipts, meaning that they're just not going to make as much money off of a playoff game in terms of attendance. Gate receipts is ticket revenue, basically. So that's going to trickle back into reduced player shares. Players get a playoff share in addition to their regular season salary. So their playoff share is not going to be as much with ticket revenue reduced. I mean, even if it is just at one ballpark, there's going to be some amount that's lesser because obviously this ballpark can't seat as many people. Broadcast challenges, I totally understand that. Maybe not as many positions, maybe not the right angles, maybe netting that's in the way of some of these camera shots. This was designed to be a minor league ballpark, not a major league facility, so that's part of the equation. I'll have more on that from my own broadcast experience in just a second. There's only a 29-seat press box at Steinbrenner Field, and yeah, when the playoffs roll around, you've got hundreds of media members, so how do you deal with that? I've also got some thoughts there. And yes, as I mentioned before, the Rays came into this season actually closer to 40% odds to make the playoffs. So it was less than 50-50, a certain percentage, but now it's jumped up to 71.2%. Their chances of making the playoffs. That has definitely jumped within the last month or month and a half. Some more points here from Ken. Atlanta and Miami are obvious geographical options, right? There's a ballpark in Atlanta. There's a ballpark in Miami. You could probably make it work so that the Rays could have it for themselves, for the playoff games they need. But clearly that's a disadvantage to go to a neutral site. The Rays have already also played a lot of home games in 2025. So if you're looking at their balance of schedule, I mean, it is road dominant. 52 of the final 83 this year are going to be on the road. So it is possible that maybe the Rays have surged a little bit. Now, they had a rough start at Steinbrenner Field to kick off this season, but since then they've turned it around. I want to say like 15 or 16 wins in their last 20 home games. So they've gotten accustomed to Steinbrenner Field, but there is going to be the effect of them playing so many road games in the second half of this season. That, by the way, was by design. Baseball knew that they could not have outdoor games in the months of July and August and September as hurricane season approaches. That's another factor, by the way. I mean, you're jumping right into playoff baseball in that time of year, a certain huge complication that maybe those games would need to be moved to alternate sites no matter what. But 52 of the final 83 on the road. So what will the second half of the Rays season be like? Will they be able to keep that 71% chance of making a postseason spot? And by the way, none of this should really come as a surprise, as Ken points out. This would be the Rays' 6th time to the playoffs in the last 7 seasons. So as much as we thought, well, don't worry about that, it won't happen. I mean, in reality, they've been a pretty good team for a handful of years, and odds are they'd probably find a way. Those are all Ken's thoughts. I'll have my thoughts on this in just a second, but first I want you to hear from somebody who has their boots on the ground here. My buddy Evan covers sports for 10 Tampa Bay News. He's their sports director, and he wanted to weigh in on this topic. Go ahead, Evan. Here you go.
I just finished a Ken Rosenthal article about the Rays and Major League Baseball discussing options about the postseason and where to play. I can pretty confidently say the Rays definitely want to play in Tampa, right? Any team that goes through a situation where they play 81 games in front of their fans, 81 games in front of a situation that they're used to, it would be a huge disadvantage for the Rays to move away from Tampa. So let's add that this is a Major League Baseball issue, which the article alludes to because they're worried about in the potential of an ALCS, the World Series. They got to logistically find tickets for 7,500 people. They have a lot of media. I get it. I was in Tropicana Field covering this team for a playoff game, and I was by the foul pole. All right, they found a space for me. And I think if you give the Rays, the city of Tampa, some parameters of ways to add seats, what they're going to have to do, I believe in that organization to get it done. Say what you will about the Rays, but did you see this team turn around that ballpark in 72 hours? That operation staff is unbelievable. Don't doubt them. What do you need? Let's figure out a way to get it done. Because I find it hypocritical for the league to say, hey, we're going to make sure that you guys are here in Tampa for the upcoming season. We're going to move you over to Steinbrenner. It's a terrible situation. A hurricane hits you. We want to make sure that you can watch your team. We have fans sweating their buns off at 12:10 in the middle of the day with no shade at Steinbrenner Field. They go 81 games at home through this ballpark, through this situation. And then you're going to move them at the most important time of the year to Miami or Atlanta where no one is going to show up. You think it's a great situation optically to play in Miami or Atlanta with nobody in there?
It's true.
During the ALCS or the World Series, than to just play in Tampa with some bleachers or whatever you got to add, where it's going to be packed, where the fans are going to be all over that place? Get out of here. You're worried about the seats, the 7,500 seats, and what you got to sell to your partners, and you got St. Pete over there in the Trop, that city dealing with what they got to deal with after the hurricane, and you're worried. These are the champagne problems. Nobody here wants to hear about that crap. All right, figure out a way to get it done. I believe that the Rays will find a way to get it done if they have to get it done. Major League Baseball, come on now. Come on.
Come on.
Let's not make this a thing. And if you thought it was going to be a thing, it should have absolutely been something talked about at the beginning of the season.
Yes.
And let it be known. But guess what? Baseball underrated these Rays. The Rays are surging, and now they're scared. That is not the Rays' problem.
Had Evan here on the YouTube channel a while back. We've never met in person, but he was great there. I've been watching his work throughout this process, so hopefully he'll join again in the near future down the road when the time is optimal and relevant. But yeah, respect his take on that. I had to include that, right? It was so good, and it's somebody from Tampa's perspective on all of this. By the way, champagne problems, that belongs on a shirt somewhere. We need that on merch. ASAP. Let me just try and recap Evan's points. I don't mean to talk for him. I let him do his thing, but I just want to he made so many strong points. I want to just try and evaluate that real quick. Players deserve to sleep in their own beds for playoffs. That is the home field advantage you play all season long for. And it is kind of an embarrassing look to have these neutral site games. Yeah, it feels a little bit disrespectful, right? That you're going to go to somewhere where you're not going to have any fans travel for you. It's going to be empty. So what? You play in this major league ballpark and there's nobody there. Totally understand. The fans didn't ask for the hurricane. The fans didn't ask for the roof to be ripped off Tropicana Field. The fans didn't ask to be going over to Steinbrenner Field. They're interested, I think, in watching their team outdoors and in Tampa for the first time versus St. Pete. But they've had to put up with this, and they will continue to have to put up with kind of the inconvenience of this. So you put them through all that, and then you take it away for the playoffs. Totally agree with Evan's points there. Champagne problems, yeah, I think the message of that is that we're talking about what? So where media people sit and what camera angles there are for the playoffs. You can figure all this out. I mean, you can make it work. It's not going to be as pretty, but you can make this work, and that's probably the right thing to do. This is an MLB problem that Evan is saying, and I totally agree. This should have been addressed in April. The groundwork of what was going to happen here should have been laid out. It shouldn't happen as the season goes along and you realize, we actually do have a problem on our hands. I realize it's the easier thing to do to just not bring it up if you hope it doesn't come up. But now it's coming up, and it kind of makes things look even worse that you didn't actually square this away months ago. Here's my points. Number one, in terms of a broadcast of a playoff game from Steinbrenner Field, if it really does come to that, or a couple games there, so what if the camera angles don't look right? I've seen highlights of their team this season where somebody hits a home run into left center field, and there's cars driving around on that main road out there. You never see that in a major league ballpark. It looks so minor league, you can't change that. That's the situation. You can't really cover this up to the point that, nobody's going to know it's a minor league field. It is a minor league field. I don't really care if the broadcast has to take a hit for a couple games and it just doesn't look like a playoff broadcast. I get it. I love production value. Obviously, I'm a person of broadcast integrity, and I value that, but I don't care with this situation, whatever it means. That's not a real important thing here. That's kind of an easy excuse, if I'm being honest. And in terms of the 29 media spots in the press box, the seats, in Sacramento, they have a media shed for doing post-game interviews. They literally bring you out to a Home Depot shed in left center field. I mean, you've seen the thing. This is not what this video is about. I don't need to go into bashing it, but it's kind of obvious that it's about as makeshift as it gets at the very best. And it's not even makeshift to a bar that's been set by Major League Baseball. I mean, in this case, they'll find room, they'll find seats, they'll figure something out, and this is only for a couple games. You've got media going into, again, a shed to do interviews at a Major League ballpark this entire season. So let's not talk about standards and trying to meet Major League standards. You've made other things work in ridiculous ways elsewhere. You can figure this out for a couple games, or honestly, a whole playoffs if they really get to the World Series. Do the Rays have any leverage or say in this? And I point this out during their sale. Think about how much is going on with this baseball team right now, like behind the scenes. If you work in the front office, you don't know who's even going to own this baseball team come playoff time. Maybe it's Stuart Sternberg. Maybe it's the group he's negotiating with right now. Maybe it's the other group that made an all-cash offer that seems more ambitious to pay everything up front and get this done. Maybe the Orlando Dreamers aren't, in fact, done. I don't think their chances are great, but my point is everything's up in the air. Maybe Sternberg just hangs on to the team. Says, you know what, I listen to that, I'm gonna negotiate even harder, so we're gonna close this negotiating window and we'll talk again soon. Who knows? So all of that going on, plus now a pretty important thing to figure out and decide, not only operating the baseball team, but if you do get to the playoffs, where are you going to play? This can't be something that's figured out in September. It has to be figured out by the All-Star break, quite honestly. But do they have any leverage? Is this going to be a choice that baseball makes for the Rays? Probably. You'd like to think they'll make it with the Rays, but what position are the Rays in leverage-wise to even say, no, you know what, we want to play our games here. This is what we're asking for, and this is what we're pushing for. By the way, not to make this a Sacramento video, but this is a one-year problem in Tampa because you'd like to think that Tropicana Field is going to get fixed and the team is going to go back and play there. I know it's going to cost a lot of money, but if the team is also sold, it's a great place to land, figure things out for a handful of years, and then go build the next thing the right way and have the proper time to do it. But this is a one-year problem in Tampa. There's 2 more years at least, maybe even 3 more years after this one still for the A's with this identical situation in Sacramento. Doesn't look like they're going to necessarily be in the playoff hunt. They were hot for a while, then they lost a bunch of games. For a 3-week span, they lost 20 out of 21. I'm not even paying attention anymore. But the point is that you might run into this same problem with the Sacramento A's over a course of multiple more years. So whatever happens here kind of does set a precedent. And my last point here, Major League Baseball has allowed these things not to happen. Well, in the case of the A's, they allowed it to happen. But with Hurricane Milton, with the roof being ripped off of Tropicana Field, those things happen, but Major League Baseball has allowed this to kind of slip and slide and fester, and now we're asking these questions that, quite honestly, they should have been answered a long time ago. Major League Baseball kind of made its bed with all this. Instead of laying it all out, here's the groundwork, here's what we're going to do. Now they got to sleep in it a little bit. And it might be comfortable, it might be uncomfortable, but they've kind of brought this upon themselves to not be proactive. Now they're reactive, and it's having people feeling a lot of different ways. Let me know what you think, by the way, in the comments section below. What do you think should happen? Also, it's important to know, are you a Rays fan? Are you from the Tampa Bay area or not? Like, what's your perspective? And also, what's your opinion on this, right? Do you think the Rays should continue playing playoff games there? Should they have to go to a neutral site? What matters most to you? I'd be curious to know. Also, thumbs up while you're down there. Helps me, the video, and the channel. And don't forget to subscribe. You know, if you hit that button, I'll definitely get to see you back here next time.